Uwais, am I audible?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, we are delighted to see you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so. This is still kind of dark here. It's
Yeah.
early. You have
Yeah.
about 6 p.m. there now?
6:25. Yeah,
Okay.
6:25. So we will wait for 5 minutes so that our participants will join, because we have kept the timing at 6:30.
And how many participants you have, if I may ask, please?
So right now it's increasing. We have 67 right now,
Okay.
but yeah, we still have 5 minutes to go.
Okay.
Then thereafter we will join.
All right.
Okay.
And I will speak for about half an hour, and then there'll be questions. Or I am done. There'll be some questions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure, sir.
Okay.
Dr. Shabir, am
Yes.
I audible?
Yes,
Am I
yes, sir,
audible?
you are audible. Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Shabir. Hello, Dr. Shabir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi. You are starting at 6:30 now?
Yeah, at 6:30.
Okay. تیٚلہِ کَرو سٹارٹ ویٖڈیو تہِ اگر ووٚنُن کیٛاہ کَتھ حالس ویٖڈیو
So it's 6:30. Shall we start?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, esteemed participants, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends, I am pleased to welcome you in today's webinar on World Soil Day event celebration titled Soil Biodiversity for Sustainable Agro-Ecosystem Functioning. This is a part of series of online webinars. It is the conservation of this very important natural source. Dear colleagues, we all understand the importance of the healthy soils and the ways in which we have been transforming the world. It has been transforming the world. Our experience has conceived us that it is only through multi-stakeholder and multilateral cooperation that we can truly accelerate the progress and reduce the misuse and abuse of soils. And equally important are the deployment of scientific interventions, innovations, and technological solutions on a scale that will reach their target audience. Dear participants, I'm delighted to share with you that today's guest speaker does not need any introduction. He's a world-renowned figure in the soil scientist community. Without wasting time, I would request my friend, Dr. Chasti, to please introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Shabir. A very good evening to all and a very warm welcome to Professor Rattan Lal, sir. I feel honored to introduce your good self to participants. Professor Rattan Lal, Director, Carbon Management and Sequestration Center, The Ohio State University, born on 5th September 1944 at Karyal, Punjab, then British India, now Pakistan, is a renowned soil scientist and has at present US citizenship. His work focuses on regenerative agriculture through which soil can help resolve global issues such as climate change, food security, and water quality. Professor Rattan Lal is also known for sustainable soil management for global food security and mitigation of climate change. Regarding education of Professor Rattan Lal, he has received his BSc Agriculture in 1963 from Punjab Agriculture University, India, MSc Soils in 1965 from IARI, India, and PhD Soils in 1968 from Ohio State University, USA. Professor Lal is the recipient of more than 26 awards and honors. Professor Rattan Lal honored with Glinka World Soil Prize 2018 by Food and Agriculture Organization, Rome, Italy. He was awarded the 2019 Japan Prize in Biological Production Ecology. On June 2020, Professor Rattan Lal was named the recipient of prestigious World Food Prize 2020 USA. Regarding his funding support and collaboration, he has received the grants of nearly
Dr. Chasti, can you hear us? Hello, Dr. Chasti?
You can go ahead, Dr. Shabir.
Dr. Chasti, hello? Yeah.
I think he has lost connection. You can proceed.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Unfortunately, Dr. Chasti has lost connection. So before we get started, just a little housekeeping as usual. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the QA box only. We will have the time for QA session at the end. And to keep the quality of sound functional during the meeting, please mute yourself. Especially, I'm requesting all the panelists. Now, I would request our esteemed speaker to please start his presentation.
Can you see the screen, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm going to put it on view graph and
Yes.
okay. Can you see the whole screen? Thank you.
Yeah.
I am very much thankful to you for inviting me to this important celebration of the World Soil Day. Soils are important. Therefore, the World Soil Day. I'll give you a little bit of history about it. But to celebrate in the beautiful region of Kashmir, it makes it a very important and special event. Kashmir is known for its beauty, especially at this time of the year. Really, hills are covered with snow. In spring, of course, the region is known for its very important crop, saffron, and some of the traditional tools. A paper by Abdul Wahid Bhatt that came out on the traditional practices. I found it very interesting to read and share that also information of relevance to you. I want to begin by stating the history of the World Soil Day. It's not very well known. I'd like you to know that this year it was the 18th celebration of the World Soil Day. The World Soil Day was launched in 2002, October, at the World Soil Congress of the International Union of Soil Science, which was then held in Bangkok, Thailand. And the resolution was intended to celebrate the importance of soil as a critical component of the natural system and as a vital contributor to human well-being and, of course, nature conservancy. Why 5th of December? As I mentioned, the Congress was held in Bangkok, Thailand, and it was inaugurated by the then King of Thailand. His name, Bhumi Bol Atulya Tej, a Sanskrit word, Buddhist culture, the same language as used in the ancient Indian scriptures. The word Bhumi in Sanskrit means soil. So Bhumi Bol Atulya Tej, the name of the king itself, I think that was his title more than the name. And the date of 5th of December was chosen because this is the birthday of the king of Thailand who launched that Congress. So that's a little bit of history about it. But in 2013, Food and Agriculture Organization Global Soil Partnership unanimously endorsed World Soil Day and requested official adoption at the 68th UN General Assembly. That is when the World Soil Day, started by IUSS, was adopted by United Nations at the UN General Assembly in December 2013, declaring the birthday of the King of Thailand, World Soil Day. This year, ICAR has received the King Bhumi Bol Award, and it will be presented to ICAR in January 2021. So that high marks, again, a very important event that Indian Council of Agriculture Research is receiving the award on world soil as an important component of the nature and therefore important to monitor. I'm come back to the Indian agriculture at the moment. During the 50s and 60s, when I was student, there were many questions. Can India feed itself? There was several books, one by Paul Ehrlich, The Population Bomb. There was a statement in which Paul stated that I have yet to meet anyone familiar with this situation who thinks India will be self-sufficient in food by 71, if ever. There are many other statements like this. Paddock and Paddock brother in 67, they stated in their book, India cannot be saved. Bangladesh is a basket case. Forget about them. Increase in agronomic production in South Asia since then, especially in India, have not only been dramatic, but it was unpredicted. Nobody did feel that India would feed itself. The fact is, in 1947, at the time of independence, the country had a population of 330 million, food grain production of 50 million tons, and in 2020, the population is 1.4 billion, food grain production of 300 million tons. While the population increased by 4.2, the food grain production increased by a factor of 6. Indeed, India has a potential food grain production of 550 million tons per year, double than what it is now. And I think it can happen, it should happen. And the Green Revolution has transformed the image of India from being a begging bowl in the 50s and 60s to a bread basket. It is the largest producer of both wheat and rice, and the largest exporter of rice. So with adoption of better technology, agriculture really has become a greater success story. But the ecological and environmental cost of food produced has been a serious issue. Therefore, it is about the right time on a World Soil Day, as we are celebrating today, to think again, what can be done to produce food, but at the same time restore soil health and the environment. It's not either or. It's a question of having both. Soil degradation, for example, is a serious problem throughout the country. Water erosion affects 64 million hectares, wind erosion 9, waterlogging 14, salinity, alkalinity, acidity, many other problems. Several problems like depletion of soil organic carbon, other physical structural degradation are not even quantified. And yet the amount of soil degradation is quite a lot. So there's a dilemma. Why aren't we working with policymakers and the general public in translating what we know? In fact, last week witnessed a lot of turmoil. Farmers in northwestern India not very happy with some of the policy issue. But the question really is, how can we restore degraded soil? And the farmers have to be part of that. Farmers are the biggest stewards of the land. They are the manager of the land resources. They have to be part of how to restore degraded soil, how to purify polluted waters, impure air, how to improve biodiversity, and how to create many other issues in the soil. Can India, therefore, bring back the life to the soil? For the health of the people and the environment, we have to bring about a drastic transformation in the way we manage soil for farming crops and animals. The question is, should we be farming soil or should we be farming crops or animals? And farming soil may be the goal. And the goal is to bring back life into the soils of India by restoring soil organic matter content and improving soil health. And that goal is a global goal. It should apply everywhere. Soil as the agroecosystem is a living entity, and the life in soil must thrive and flourish so that soil can generate ecosystem services essential both for human and nature. And on a World Soil Day that we are celebrating today, that is really the principal objective, the goal, the mission, how to restore the soil. Organic matter content in most soils, especially of the plain regions, northwestern part, central part, and even the southern part, is as low as 0.5% in most cases, very low. While the optimum range of the organic matter content somewhere between 2.5 to 3% in the root zone, top 30 centimeter or so. And we have a long way to go to restore the soil health through improving the soil organic matter content. That brings me to the question of what is a soil. Soil is a living entity. Soil is a habitat for 25% of all terrestrial biodiversity. And these organisms in soil, most of them we cannot see, require food. And the food is the biomass, the residue, the organic material. And if we take away the organic material, then this 25% of the global terrestrial biodiversity cannot survive. And land misuse and soil mismanagement is a serious threat to soil health. Therefore, the objective of the management is to increase, improve, and strengthen soil's capacity to support life. And it is the soil's life support capacity that depends on soil organic matter content. Just like we, the human, require food, which is organic matter in one form or the other, soil organisms also require organic matter as a food. And then when we take away everything, crop residue, and we burn sometime what's left behind, or we graze it to the cattle, and the cow dung or dung of the animal livestock is not returned back either, soil does not get its share, and soil rebels. And that rebellion is the degradation when it does not create the ecosystem services. This soil health, what is it? It's a capacity of the soil as a dynamic and biologically active entity, within natural and managed landscape to sustain multiple ecosystem services such as net primary productivity, food and nutrition security, biodiversity, water purification and renewability, carbon sequestration, air quality and atmospheric chemistry, elemental cycling for human and nature, both, not just human, nature as well. Human are part of nature. If nature benefits, human will naturally benefit. And then there's a link. The health of soil, health of plant, animal, human, environment, and the planet is one and indivisible. It's interconnected. When the health of soil goes down, the health of everything else goes down with it. Therefore, in addition to socioeconomic factors, food security research must focus on environment and soil related issue as a management priority. Because on soil health depend all the other ecosystem services: climate change adaptation mitigation, food security quantity and quality, above and below ground biodiversity, water resources quality and quantity. In fact, this is the engine of economic development. If soil health is not restored, economic development cannot sustain, because these two go together. Therefore, the green revolution that happened in the 60s and 70s was a welcome thing. It really saved millions and millions of people from starvation and is still doing it. But it was not soil-centric. It was based on dwarf varieties, short-statured, responsive to fertilizers and irrigation, not necessarily producing more biomass, but producing more grains. But now we have to rethink that now the first phase of the green revolution has been successful, and I'm glad it was successful. I salute people who did bring that green revolution, like Dr. Borlaug, Dr. Swaminathan, many others, mostly plant breeding based concept. But now we have to think about soil and soil resilience. Without soil health, even the most miracle variety cannot withdraw water and nutrients if they do not exist. And therefore, it has to be soil-based. It has to be ecosystem-based, eco-efficiency, so that when you apply nutrients, water, and energy, their use efficiency is drastically improved. It has to be knowledge-based, science-driven, and management in such a way that the health of soil, water, and air, all those three environmental components, which are basis of improving biodiversity, is also maintained. So we have to look at the soil management from a point of view of replacing whatever we remove. If we remove the nutrients, if we remove organic matter content by decomposition, we must replace it. We must respond wisely to whatever we change, and we must predict what may happen from natural and human actions. From that point of view, I must congratulate all of you, those who are studying agriculture, especially those studying soil, because both soil and agriculture have a very, very, very bright future. Why bright future? Because everything else depends on it. And therefore, more changes are expected between now, 2020, and 2050, and many of you will be here, than have happened over the past 12,000 years when the agriculture began. And these dramatic things will transform not only the agriculture, but will also restore the environment. Remember, we focused on agriculture but neglected the environment. Now, environment improvement, restoration of soil health, improvement of its capacity and functionality to produce ecosystem services will be the foundation of the agriculture. And that will be the change that we expect will happen. Carbon in soil and trees will become a commodity, something that can be bought and sold, like we buy and sell rice or wheat or milk. Similarly, carbon in soil and trees will also have a price that can generate another income stream for farmers. That brings me to the topic of regenerative agriculture. Regenerative word means that the soil quality is naturally being restored, improved, enhanced. And from that point of view, there is no one terminology or one technology or one practice. It could be a range of practices, as long as these practices regenerate, restore, improve soil health, soil quality. So a system-based regenerative agriculture is designed to reconcile the need to produce adequate and nutritious food with the absolute necessity of restoring the environment and making farming and agriculture a solution to environmental issues through eco-intensification and producing more from less. And what do I mean by more from less? We produce more food from less land. We already have a 5 billion hectare of land globally under agriculture, out of which 1.5 billion under cropland, another 3.5 billion under grazing land. Do we need so much land if we can manage the land properly? The answer is, if we manage properly, we can return quite a lot of land back to nature for the nature conservancy. So we produce more from less land, less water, less fertilizers and pesticide, less energy, and more importantly, less emission of greenhouse gases, so that we can save land, water, forest, other resources for nature. We have 8.7 million species on the earth. Human alone, one species, uses 40% of everything that the earth produces. Not fair for other species. Therefore, we must share resources with other species. And that is where the organic matter content, which I indicated before, is very, very critical, extremely important. If we were to do better agriculture throughout the country and throughout the world, we can target, we can plan that irrigated land area, which now we have 70 million hectare, but we use 200 kilometer cube of water. Probably we can increase the area to as much as 100 million hectare over the next 80 years, but at the same time decrease the amount of water we use by adopting precision irrigation, drip irrigation, or even vapor irrigation in arid and drier climate, using irrigation through scientific technology and innovation, not flood irrigation. Fertilizer use, right now we use 30 million tons. The use efficiency of nitrogen may hardly be 20%. If we improve the efficiency, if we improve the soil health and soil functionality, the amount of fertilizer used may decrease tremendously, but its efficiency may increase. The focus is not on the rate, but the focus is on the efficiency. That's the goal. In-field burning of residue right now, right at this season, the rice straw has been burnt, and we burn 100 million tons by 2030 through education, through dialogue, through discussion, through cooperation. with farmers, empowering farmers, discussing with them, do not burn. Leave that residue on the soil. It's a very important asset. It's critical to soil health. It's critical as a food for the organisms in the soil. And we can return it back. Within 5 years, within 10 years at the most, the amount of residue burning throughout the country, throughout the world, should be zero. Pesticide, we use 56,000 tons. By improving soil health, by improving soil biodiversity, by improving the ability of the soil organism to create immunity in the plants against pests and pathogens, we can progressively reduce the use of pesticides. Pesticides are poisons for the environment. Therefore, they should be used judiciously, sparingly, and prudently. And yet the cereal yield, which on a national level right now is only 2 tons, there is no reason why it cannot be 4 tons or even more. By bridging the yield gap, by improving the soil quality and functionality. And at the same time, the national post-harvest losses are probably 30 to 40%. They should be reduced. Within 10 years, there is no reason why the losses should be more than 10 if cannot be reduced by as little as 5. I understand some losses will happen, but not 30 to 40%. Globally, we produce 3 billion tons of food grains. Unfortunately, regrettably, very sadly, 1 billion tons of those grains reach no stomach, either human or animal. Waste of food is a crime against nature. It must stop. And each one of us has a responsibility to do that. While we are doing recycling, organic manure, which we use now about 200 million tons, should really go up to 500 million tons. As we recycle most of it, as we provide clean cooking fuel to the household communities everywhere in all villages, the dung and crop residue and other material used for a fuel source should be returned back to the soil, should be returned back to the land. And this is the kind of planning we must do over time. Soil-centric farming mean, because the organic matter is a critical component, so NPK, the slogan should be CNPK. And it's a soil farming rather than focus on crop or animal farming. You are farming soil to raise crop and animals. And that's the focus. Of course, in that focus, the variety both of animal and the plants, crop, are essential, absolutely essential. But soil is the basis on which those things are raised. Farming carbon can also be sold and bought in the market. Right now, the market is not well developed because there is no limit on how much fossil fuel can be burned. But with cap on the fossil fuel burning, yes, commodity value of the carbon can be quite a lot. I did calculate the cost of carbon based on what is required to make crop into humus. And that price is $130 per ton of carbon, whether it's in the biomass in the trees or whether it's in soil as a humus. So if a farmer sequesters half a ton of carbon per hectare, the price that farmers should be compensated for is $65 per hectare or $26 per acre. You can multiply that by 70, so you know how many rupees that is. If a farmer sequesters 1/3 of a ton, that's $43 per hectare, $17.50 per acre. Rather than subsidies for fertilizer or for irrigation or for any other thing, we should try to compensate farmer for restoring nature and soil quality and soil functionality and soil health, and compensate them so they don't burn the crop residue, pay them for leaving this, so increasing the organic matter content. This is a better way of empowering farmers rather than through subsidies. That brings me to the question of rights of soil. Nature must have rights. Soil is a living entity. As I mentioned, all 25% of the biodiversity is in soil. So as a living entity, there must be rights of soil. Being the essence of all life, soil must have a right to be protected, restored, thrive, and managed judiciously. Simply because one owns a soil does not mean you can dump on it chemicals or pesticides and poisonous substances or scalp it for brick making or do whatever you wish. It's a living entity. And therefore, thinking about a living entity having its right, we must protect soils against ad hoc expansion of urbanizations. There should be some prime agricultural land that should be demarcated, that it cannot be encroached upon for future generations to come. And that's the idea about the soil rights. There are critical limits of soil degradation that you as scientists and students and academicians should understand and define those critical limits. Imagine a ball rolling down a landscape. And if this ball has resilience, then it can bounce back once it changes its state from one threshold to another threshold. And it can bounce back through removal of biotic and abiotic stresses. But if it reaches a tipping point of critical limits that the ball crosses, then unfortunately it has no capacity to bounce back. Same thing applies to soil. Soil has a critical limits of key properties: organic matter content, rooting depth, cation exchange capacity, water holding capacity, nutrient reserves, recycling. Do not cross those limits. Identify what are the limits of different soil types in your state, in your region, in the area of your interest, at a national level, and make sure that soil restoration begins before it reaches the threshold level that it cannot bounce back. Unfortunately, soil, like many plants and animals, have also become extinct because they have reached this stage where they cannot come back. And soil are also endangered. They may be somewhere here. So one more misstep, misuse, abuse of land resources, and that soil can really tip over and become extinct. And this soil is already endangered. We must understand those. We must be able to communicate that information to the land managers and to the policymaker. And that is the important part of avoiding irreversible degradation, which is very, very critical, especially in a hilly climate where the soil can not come back. I think on a World Soil Day, we should think about some don't and do's. In terms of don't, in-field burning of crop residues, flood-based irrigation, the removal of topsoil for brick making, broadcasting fertilizers in standing water or on the soil. Obviously, use efficiency will be low. Plowing, excessive, including puddling. I think it's better to have lesser yield, 10%, 15%, waste less grain, but do not puddle, do not grow rice in a dry, arid environment. Think about other crops. Traditional fuel should be substituted by more modern fuel so that the dung and residues can be put back on the land. We must have a controlled grazing. We must have land saved for forages to grow pastures rather than feeding them crop residues and other things. We must store grain under proper shelter rather than under plastic cover and therefore get lost. We should think about subsidy to be changed to ecosystem services. And we must use crop residues for using it as a share of the land so that land can produce forever. Grains for people, crop residue for the soil. And I think that equity we must maintain. So some of the do's in correspondence with that: conservation agriculture, leaving the crop residue back on the land, recycling, all biomass, all bio-waste, providing clean cooking fuel to the rural community, protecting prime agricultural land against urbanization, planting trees everywhere the land is more than 7% slope. The lower Himalayas should all be covered throughout the Himalaya regions so that we do not suffer from the flood drought syndrome. We must revise curricula at the school level, primary, secondary school, at the college level, so that the soil and the environment are important part of the curricula. We must reward farmer for ecosystem services, not necessarily subsidy as a marketing enterprise. And we must encourage even a religious organization to preach ethics and protection of soil and nature. We must have increased dialogue between scientists and farmers and scientists and policymakers. And we should involve communities in soil land restoration, in vegetation establishment. With several of these things, it is a good way to celebrate the World Soil Day. And the idea is to implement soil protection policies, soil protection and restoration, and making sure that the soil as a natural resource can be used forever. With that, I wish you all a very, very happy, safe, and healthy, especially during this time, the World Soil Day. And please look after yourself and your family and friends until we get out of this terrible situation of the pandemic that the world is facing. I'll be glad to answer any question that you may have.
Thank you, sir, for such a wonderful presentation. As rightly put, it is a high time for soil-centric farming. So with that, we will go ahead and take some time for questions. It looks like we have few questions. So I request Dr. Iqbal to share a few of the selected questions. Dr. Iqbal. Dr. Iqbal, are you there?
I think he has lost connection earlier also.
That's okay.
Okay.
Maybe people can ask questions if
Yes,
they wish.
yes.
Okay.
Let me see. There's one question from Shahnawaz. He's a soil scientist in SCOST. He asks us how to frame soil-centric sustainable production and policies to bring organic carbon crediting commodity in existence to Indian perspective.
Thank you. I'm not necessarily focused on organic farming. Organic farming means absolutely no use of chemicals and fertilizers. I think judicious use of chemicals and fertilizer is acceptable. In organic, you certify no chemical were used at all. I'm not sure if we are ready at this stage to go everywhere 100% organic. At some stage, it might be possible, but the idea is judicious use of chemical. But toward that goal, recycling organic matter is very critical. And the important part is communication and dialogue with farmers, that the crop residue, any other biomass from the animal waste should be returned back to the land. And that involves extension, that involve services that can approach to farmers. It involves education to make sure that the primary and secondary school children are also aware of this issue. That obviously involves policy people. And please make sure it's not a coercion. When the policy is, it's not we are going to find the farmers who are going to burn the crop residue. On the other hand, we can reward farmers who do not burn. And that's a more proactive kind of policy. So this is a process that will take time, discussion, and cooperation and participation, not coercion.
Yeah. Sir, there's one question. He's asking that, as you rightly pointed out, that farmers need to be compensated for conserving the soil. Shouldn't we focus on soil trading, just like we have carbon credits, soil credits?
Yes, certainly. That's exactly what we are talking about. The only difficulty I have with credit is the price that should be given to farmer at the current level in market is not good enough. Chicago Climate Exchange, the price went up to $4 per ton of CO2, and then it market collapsed because there was no demand and supply issue. There was more supply than demand because the industry could burn as much fuel as you need. So while the actual price is about $30, $35 per ton of CO2, the market trading for credit, 1 credit of carbon means 1 ton of CO2, is less than $1. And $1 less per acre, farmer, what will they get with it? Nothing. So farmers should be paid fair, just price by transparent system of payment, which is what I call ecosystem services. Until the market develops, when the farmers are given a fair price, that was the case in Europe, where there was a cap that you cannot burn, doesn't matter what company you are, a certain amount allocated at a national level. The price in Europe has been 25 euro per ton of CO2, which is about the same thing as I was talking about. So if the market develops, yes, credit system is good. If not, compensate farmer for the real value of the carbon sequestration.
Yeah, fine. There are a few more questions, but I think the time is running out. I should possibly email them. If you have the time, you may reply them later. But right now, I would request our chief guest, the guest of honor, Dr. Nazir Ahmad Ganai, to please speak on the day of this.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shabir Ahmed Mangur Sahab, for having me here. In fact, we are blessed to have Professor Rattan Lal with us at Scotch Kashmir. I believe this is third time, if I remember, or maybe more.
Yeah.
And having time for us from his such busy schedules speaks about how much he concerns us and how much he values us. Professor Rattan Lal, we thank you very much for accepting our call and invitation to enlighten us with the rich experiences which you have. And I believe that I should have been there at the beginning of your presentation and told the audience here that you are going to listen the what we call as the Nobel Laureate in Agriculture for all of us, because you are the winner of the World Food Prize 2020, and that award has come to you for developing and mainstreaming a soil-centric approach to increasing the food production that conserves natural resources and mitigates climate change. And this is a contribution of the 5 decades of your contribution, wherein you promoted the innovative soil-saving techniques benefiting the livelihoods of more than what I was going through 500 million smallholder farmers. Then improving the food and nutritional security of more than 2 billion people, and saving millions of hectares of natural tropical ecosystems. To my audience who are here listening to us and who have listened to you, sir, this is where we matter to this life. You know, we say that the soil is live, isn't it? It grows so much for us, the soil. And we owe so much back to the soil. And how much do we owe back to the soil? I tell my participants here who are listening to us and who have listened to such a beautiful presentation, that this is where if we want that, we should also have a purpose in life for something. That inspiration we must draw from Professor Rattan Lal. Sir, the award which you have received of, I believe, $250,000, and such a big prize, and then you have donated this whole prize for future soil research and education. So to again my audience here, this is again a big thing for us, a big inspiration for us, that we must live for others. Not only did you live for others, you are living for the ecosystem on the earth. So what a great contribution you had for the humanity and for this whole planet Earth. Because ultimately on date, everyone, all the agriculturists, all the environmentalists, all the politicians across the globe, they're all worried about how do we make this Earth a lively planet? How do we make it worth for living? Because I personally believe that all of us are hell-bent upon insulting this Earth by one way or the other way. There are great powers who are the nuclear powers. They believe that they are the nuclear powers, and they do not know, they do not understand that how much of a damage they are going to do or they have done to the Earth. If we are the agriculturists and we understand in hunt for producing more food, how much insult we are doing to the soil. This live soil, which carries more life inside it than it is above it. How much we are insulting to it, putting lots of those indiscriminately, those pesticides, those fungicides into it, and how much we are draining the soil. And sir, therefore, I believe, through your presentation, which was such a very wonderful presentation, and you gave us a flavor of all of this, and telling us that how should we protect it, how should we conserve it, and how should we replenish it by giving back what we have consumed out of it. And I believe that last time when we were listening to you, sir, you gave some references to the religious scriptures, where you said that if we also see our religious scriptures, maybe the Shastras, the Puranas, the Quran, and other scriptures, some hundreds and thousands years before, there was a mention of this planet Earth and this soil, that we must respect it. So it was great evening with you, sir, and we are all blessed. And we tell it very proudly to our in the ICR, Indian Agriculture Research System, and we tell them that Professor Rattan Lal were there with us at Coast Kashmir. They really rate us very high. And let me, sir, share with you that only a couple of days before, the Indian Council of Agriculture Research released that ICR ranking of the universities. And we, in this part of the country, kind of a neglected or a kind of place, which has been there in that kind of a confrontation known globally to everybody. We are the 9th best agriculture university in the country in India on date.
Oh, very nice.
And and I compliment all the teachers of this university that despite all the kind of those uncertain situations which we have been facing here over decades, we have done tremendously well compared to those universities which are in the states, in other states of India, where everything is normal, where everything is ideal. There is no lockdowns, there are no internet shutdowns, there are no electricity shutdowns, there are no hartals, there are no curfews. But still, despite all of these limitations, our faculty have worked very hard, and then we are at number 9, serial 9 in the ranking. But then we target, and rather we aim to be the number 1 in the country. So with your blessings and with your support, with your advices to our faculty, to our students, and the inspiration we would be drawing out of it, definitely I believe that we will reach to that number 1 spot in the country. Again, sir, I tell you that I believe a couple of days before, or maybe some weeks before only, the students from, there was one kind of this examination by the Indian Council of Research for higher studies for our students, the junior research fellowships for masters and PhD degrees. And I believe that 52 of our students have qualified for those ICAR JRF positions. So again, our teachers have struggled very hard, and I would say again because during this COVID period since March or April, we have worked very hard to have people like you on board with us. And because ultimately we believe that it is not just the degrees and the qualification, it is the wisdom in you which you have accumulated over so many number of decades and which you are sharing in those few slides to us and summing up everything. So we owe to Professor Rattan a lot. We owe to all the experts which we have been inviting on our forums. We are so blessed. We thank you so much for being us this evening. I believe in India, and maybe this is morning or maybe early morning in USA. And we pray for your good health. We wish you that you stay safe during these COVID times. And I compliment Dr. Shabir Ahmed Bangru, who is working very young scientist from our university and working very hard. And I believe that he's one of the guys who is all time with me because we have this National Agricultural Higher Education Program. And I wanted that time a young guy must be there with me to see that we are able to just implement it effectively. So I congratulate you. I congratulate his supporting staff, the head division of the soil sciences, all the staff there, the students that who are there. I believe more than 200 of them are there. So, sir, we thank you very much. I don't have words to express my gratitude to you, but maybe ये जो टूटा फूटा हम बोल रहे हैं, तो उम्मीद है कि आप जो है ना हमारा ये सारा accept कर लेंगे. We thank you very much.
Thank you. If I may just say how delighted I am to know that despite all the hardship, you have achieved number 9th place. I am sure if you continue on the hard work path, dedication and commitment to education and research, you will be number 1 in the country, not too long from now. And I'll be delighted to help and support whatever I can do to help you achieve that number 1 place. I believe very strongly that with the hard work, sincerity, and commitment that many of your young faculty has shown, you will be number 1. That's my wish. And I'll be there with you to help you achieve scientifically that goal.
Inshallah.
Thank you, sir.
Professor Rattan Sahab, I believe that that invitation is with you. That once things turn normal and these borders they open. Yeah. All of us would like to rather wish you to have here you in Kashmir, and that would be a great opportunity for all of us. I believe that we hope that this situation turns normal, and then we start traveling across the globe, across the nations as normal as earlier times, and have Professor Rattan with us.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be so blessed at that time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Nazir Ahmed Ganai, the Director Planning and Monitoring and PI of the NAHEP project. We have come to the end of our webinar. I would like to thank everyone who made this webinar possible. And I especially thank Professor Rattan Lal for his wonderful presentation and accepting our invitation at such a short notice. With your permission, sir, if you permit us, we would like to have one group photograph. I would request everybody to please open up their camera so that we may have one group photograph.
Hi, sir. Good evening. This is Dr. R.S. Meena.
Oh, yes. How are you?
Fine, thank you, sir.
So I think we are good to go now.
Thank you.
I again thank Professor Rattan Lal for joining us today.
Take one more photo.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
They are all expert guys.